You were strongly cautioned. It's okay, I don't want to be Toonami Month anyway. I'm just a robot voice, I don't have feelings. I'm not hurt. Why?
It's been a while, Gainax. If there ever was a studio that typified anime, it'd definitely be Gainax. Not just because it animated some of the most recognizable, if not most polarizing anime ever made, but because it's the one anime studio that embraces its own identity as an anime studio like no other. Production IG, Studio Ghibli, Tatsunoko, they're all fantastic studios and each have created landmark titles, but they're animation studios first and foremost. Gainax, meanwhile, revels in its own particular medium and every facet that comes with it. What other fate could an anime studio have whose first projects were independent short films that premiered in 1980s anime conventions?
The visions that sing in my mind, the early dawn, the shades of time, twilight crawling through my window pane.
This was released in 1983, and for my money, Gainax has never been as cool as they were here. Well, cool being a relative term. From the very roots of its history, Gainax was a studio founded and run by otaku, which manifested itself in its many titles that were based on or around the act of making anime. From the celebratory Otaku no Video to the deconstructing and frustrating Evangelion, Gainax's flag has been permanently mounted on the concept of anime for anime's sake. Of course, such a mindset can easily lead to a suffocating meta-narrative. Nothing can lose an audience faster than when a show tumbles down the rabbit hole of its own navel, after all. You can't fault Gainax for being passionate about what they do, because art without passion is a commercial waiting to sell you something. But passion isn't the caulk that holds the structure together. It's the foundation on which you build upon. Enter Cooly, a 2000 OVA that might very well be the most passionate project that Gainax has ever produced. Covering 6 episodes in total, Cooly is an anime that's, oddly enough considering who made it, very non-anime. The usual styles and trappings of the medium at the time are made deliberately absent, replaced with the sensibility and mindset of a punk rock music video.
Round 2. Knockout?
Even its initial American release strayed from the anime usual, originally being licensed by the now-defunct Sync Point, which was a distributor arm owned by the Japanese company Broccoli. It's quite rare when anime is licensed here in America by a Japanese company, and I'm surprised that it doesn't happen more. Then again, this was during a time in which retailers and companies were trying to squeeze every dime out of the otaku wallet, what with every DVD in the series costing $30, which meant it cost $90 to get all 6 episodes back in the day. Today, you can get it for about $20. Thank you, Funimation. But what is it about Cooly that not only did Funimation rescue it, but it also recently got greenlit for a future television series to be produced by Toonami? Though admittedly, Turner Broadcasting doesn't have the cleanest record of co-producing anime. Hint, hint! Ugh, sorry, had to get that one off my chest. But to answer that question, we have to look at Cooly from the beginning. The series follows Naota, a 12-year-old cynic who seems to trudge his way through life expecting nothing but the mundane. That is, until a Vespa-riding maniac named Haruko runs into him and cracks a Rickenbacker 4001 upside his cranium, thus causing cosmic robotic horrors to spring forth from his head like an eldritch horror novel.
It's getting bigger!
And then Naota finds out that he's in the center of a 3-way intergalactic battle between Haruko, the monolithic corporation Medical Mechanica, and a space pirate named Adamus, who manifests himself as a gigantic space phoenix! went from 0 to wonky bonkers insane in a nanosecond. Yeah, there is tons to unpack in Fooly Cooly, and most of it not being pertinent to the story or even the main themes of said story. It's erratically paced, spastic in tone, and is by all accounts an assault on the senses from the word go. To try and parse this out as evenly and as coherently as possible, I'm going to have to nix a complete plot recap, because honestly, the plot's kind of weak. Haruko moves into Naota's house, much to his chagrin, and then hijinks ensue. Sure, there are supporting characters who add their presence to the plot and story, but in terms of hitting the goalposts, they don't add much to what's happening in the overall. Hell, the proposed villain of the story, Medical Mechanica, doesn't even have a character representing them. Rather, it's their office that serves as their physical presence. But Fooly Cooly doesn't concern itself with what's happening and why. It concerns itself with who it's happening to and why. Strip away the fantastical elements of Fooly Cooly and you're left with a story about Naota growing up. It's no secret that the show is a down-and-out coming-of-age story, granted it's through the filter of a sci-fi epic that culminates in the near destruction of the world. But all of that is just typical for Gainax. I mean, a boy having to grow up in the wake of cosmic bending near annihilation? Where have I heard that before? While Gainax can be accused of retreading ground here, I believe it's for a different intention, and that has largely to do with the director Kazuya Tsuramaki, who is the veritable protege of none other than Hideaki Anno. That the two men share more than a few characteristics should only come naturally, seeing as how often and close they worked with each other. But while Anno seems more interested in psychologically compromised characters, Tsuramaki seems to have an interest in developmentally stunted characters. Naota, while being a voice of stern, if not acerbic reason, is still struggling with his feelings about growing up without his brother around, made worse by the fact that he doesn't really want to talk about it.
It looks good on you. New style, the bandage look?
Whatever. I don't care about baseball.
You are a big liar.
Likewise, his father, Kamon, is an immature man-child who could talk your ear off about his favorite anime crap. Is it any wonder why he has more than a passing resemblance to Anno himself?
Think of the symbolism involved to have a humanoid robot in a normal household, contrasted by the abnormal advance of science, which is thereby proven to exist. Consider the significance of a human family, and the robot is part of it and is accepted into it.
What's he talking about?
He wrote a whole book on the deep mysteries of Eva.
Actually, Gainax uses Kamon less as a counterfoil to Naota and more as a vehicle to make most of their anime references, which aren't restricted to their own projects.
You are so cruel! Haruko-chan!
What's with those clothes?
Ah, this red jacket you mean? Why? Do you prefer the green one, Naota? You like the other version, huh? The Castle of Cagliostro version, huh?
What? No love for Pink Jacket Lupin? But between Evangelion and Fooly Cooly, the one resonating thing that the both of them share is something that doesn't necessarily have a name. For lack of proper nomenclature, let's call this Gainax Syndrome. What's Gainax Syndrome, I hear you ask? Well, you know how Eva loves its grandiose displays of seemingly meaningful imagery, often relating to religion? But then you realize that the imagery is mainly there for aesthetic reasons, and any kind of meaning derived from said image correlates very, very loosely with any of the themes of the story, if at all. Let me try to put it like this. This is what watching a Gainax anime feels like. And this is usually how it reads. It's this undeniable feeling that what you are watching isn't nearly as deep as it pretends to be, and Fooly Cooly is certainly guilty of that as well. A robot affixed with wings and a halo strikes a crucifixion pose and is ascended into the heavens. A gigantic hand is pierced in the form of the Holy Stigmata. What do these scenes have to do with Naota's story? Fuck all. But what about the sudden shift in animation styles?
So the blue is confirmed then. All right. I already got Medical Mechanica's unofficial consent. We'll take care of it here so they can't interfere with us.
I have work to do, so let's do this fast, okay? But I want it to look cool, you know what I mean? Charming in a manly, grown-up kind of way, get it?
Surely this is supposed to impart some deeper meaning that warrants further examination and consideration, right? Well, no.
You did it, didn't you? You should know about your own head.
Because you hit me there!
Let's see it!
You came here with my father, why don't you go stay with him?
Anime Abandon will return in a moment.
kids!
We are kids, including you.
I'm not gonna play a cat, it's embarrassing! Ugh.
You think that's embarrassing? With a head like that?
Anime abandon now continues.
Fooly Cooly was a co-production with Production IG, and just like Blood the Last Vampire, Fooly Cooly's existence is partly predicated on being an animation test of sorts, hence why the sudden shift in art styles and animation techniques.
Come back to life!
And why Gainax felt it necessary to lampshade the whole situation.
Those slow motion scenes are really tough, huh?
Yeah, you have to hold your breath until they cut.
You can get cramps from that, you know?
What? I thought it was a special effect. You're doing the slow motion?
Again, the reason why these particular and comparatively infrequent instances of faux profundity don't work is because it has little to do with the themes of Fooly Cooly. Maturity, puberty, and, well, sex. I mean, that's why it's called Fooly Cooly.
Who's this slut you're fooling around with? Huh? Huh?
Mamimi, we were down at the river!
Really, Mamimi?
I bet she does it like a weasel. She's cursed, I tell you.
Ah, your brother is away, so she's sinking her fangs into you now, fondling around, fooling around, Fooly Cooly!
Fooly Cooly is just baby talk for sex, and considering that the show is all about a boy learning about his sexuality and how to cope with confusing feelings towards the women in his life, the title makes perfect sense. Take note how Naota refuses to share Mamimi's drink by giving a childish excuse of not liking how the drink tastes, but at the end of the episode, he shares it with her. Thus they share an indirect kiss. This act is mirrored all throughout the anime, and you could even argue that the catalyst of Naota being able to sprout monstrous robots from his head is not Haruko crushing her Vespa into him, or even the base to the face, but rather the kiss of life that she gave him. In fact, the act of kissing is a reoccurring motif of the shows, culminating with Naota returning the kiss to end his emotional arc. The climax to all of this, so to speak? Naota nuts up and does the metaphorical deed. A satellite shaped like a baseball is hurtling towards Earth, and the only one who could stop it is a frightened Naota. But with courage and a little bit of help from Haruko, he launches the ball to the cheap seats. On the surface, this just seems like a metaphor for action over inaction.
Anyway, nothing can happen till you swing the bat.
But a deeper reading suggests that this situation is actually a metaphor for losing your virginity. Naota is scared, inexperienced, and clutching to his phallic club. When he finally swings, it's not the contact that sends the ball back to whence it came, but rather his and Haruko's contact that does the trick. A single act shared between two people. Also, it doesn't take much to see any kind of sexual tension between these two.
Hit it into the sky, don't hold back. Before he swings the bat, a real slugger imagines an arc inside his heart, arching directly to heaven.
Also, using baseball as a metaphor for sex? Even the Japanese know what getting to first base means. But while the themes of sex and puberty are immediately obvious, like painfully, unmistakably, how in the world could you overlook this obvious?
Small, as usual. Guess that's the best you can do, huh? Takun's a lot manlier, pyong.
They're far from the only themes of the show. At its core, underneath the miles of layered Gainax visual insanity and sexual innuendos,
the satellite achieved escape velocity at Gamma 4. Bomb neutralized. Satellite en route to galaxies unknown.
Rat.
Fooly Cooly is about being honest. Emotionally honest, to be more specific. Peppered throughout the entire show are these little tiny subdued moments that refer to this idea.
Oh, glasses.
Our secret. I wear contacts.
You've been hiding things.
Oh, look who's talking.
Well, subdued by comparison.
Grab a guitar and you can be a pop idol. Chicks dig it, dude. Pyong!
Pyong?
Like filter or slash. Like red hot chili peppers or rage against the machine or Richard Cheese!
There's one that doesn't fit the list, you know.
But when you contrast the themes of puberty and maturity with emotional honesty, you begin to see how well they work together. Without a positive male role model in his life, Naota struggles with coming to terms over what being an adult actually means. His father is uselessly obsessive, and his grandfather seems equally single-minded about sex.
Let's see it. I said to get the one with the Anna Nicole centerfold. Can't you get anything right?
So when he tries to be an adult, what does he do? He tries to kiss Mamimi to prove he's mature, even though he lies to her and himself about his feelings for her. It's only when he's honest with himself and honest with Haruko that Naota completes his arc. Fooly Cooly asks, what does it mean to be an adult if not being sexual or taking part in war games? And it answers with being honest to yourself, your feelings, and to the people around you. This notion is further exemplified with a side character, Ninamori, Naota's classmate and possible crush. Her parents are going through a nasty and very public separation, but Ninamori refuses to acknowledge how much this is troubling her, reflecting how Naota refuses to acknowledge missing his brother. Although Ninamori's emotional arc doesn't end in such a fantastical way as Naota's did, I find her end resonates more deeply. After letting Ninamori stay the night at his house, she reveals that she wears glasses at home, but contacts when she's in public. Further along, she openly admits to rigging a vote to get herself and Naota to be the leads in a school play, culminating in her own robot monstrosity emerging from her head. Ninamori is going through the exact same arc of emotional maturity as Naota, and when she's finally honest with herself and him, she completes her arc.
Ninamori-san, break a leg!
Oh look, glasses.
They're fake.
Maybe she doesn't complete it. She still is 12 years old after all. I have a feeling that this theme of honesty has more to do with co-writer Yoji Enokido, screenwriter of Onran High School Club and freaking revolutionary girl Utena, along with a habit of writing disjointed, even Yoda-like dialogue.
Mamimi, why do you always do this?
Earlobes.
How?
If I don't do it, I'll overflow.
What do you mean? What'll happen?
Probably something amazing.
And Enokido has a firm grasp on teenage character development and interaction, both of which Fooly Cooly use marvelously. Granted, it's kind of hard to see Fooly Cooly as a character piece since, well...
Haruko-san! Here's my weapon, it's all for you!
But if you think about Fooly Cooly as a viewing experience, especially if you're rewatching it now as an adult, you realize that it just sort of strangely works. Like most of you, I'm sure, I caught Fooly Cooly back when it premiered on Adult Swim in 2003, when I was about Naota's age. And like most of you, I was blown away by the visuals, the music, and the sheer aura of importance it wore like a crown of oak leaves. But rewatching the series, I began thinking about the spectacle feeling suddenly hollow. But on the flip side, the characters felt more involving and human than I remembered them being. I found myself relating to Naota, as I too felt like every adult in my life was stupid, and my friends and I were the only mature ones around this podunk little burg of mine. If I had to sum up my thoughts on Fooly Cooly, it's that it's surreal and yet relatable. In that way, it has a lot in common with one of my favorite shows from my childhood, The Adventures of Pete and Pete. Of course, the two shows share nothing visually similar, but they evoke the same kind of mood and feeling in the adult viewer, especially if you watched both when you were young. Oh, and let's not forget that both are driven by their indie rock music, Polaris for Pete and Pete, and The Pillows for Fooly Cooly. Nostalgically speaking, I find myself liking Fooly Cooly a lot more than I previously did as a teenager, which is kind of beautiful when you think about it. An anime you watched as a young pubescent teenager that you liked well enough, over time becomes a more enriching show than your teenage appraisal gave it credit for. You've matured, just like Naota. It's sadly rare that a title from our past can be just as good as we remembered it, but to go back and realize it's even better? That is something to hold on to. Maybe that little bucket was closer to the sea than I thought. Thank you for joining me in our second Adult Swim month. We return to our normal programming next month with Appleseed. Till next time.
I can try to hide, but why waste my time sensing round of you? Everything I do says you're everywhere. Everywhere.
Long live your Lord High Regent Sage. Long live Benetopia.